kids, it's time for another episode of the Fueled by Weird podcast, the only podcast that has been able to travel across the multiverse and not disrupt the timeline. I'm Chris Daly, and today I have the pleasure of chatting with the founders of Insymmetry Creations, Matt Knowles and Steph Cannon. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good, doing good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, doing great, man. Just glad that we're alive. Glad that we're alive.
Yes,
Glad that we're here with you, man.
I'm very happy that you guys are here. I've been wanting to meet and talk to you guys for a long time, so I'm very
I
excited.
know, I'm surprised that it's taken this long, but I guess that's just that's scheduling for you.
Well, I mean, it's my fault too. I've been wanting to start this show forever, but I just haven't been able to get it out there. But with the help of my lovely editor Jackie Daytona, he kind of helped push me into the realm. So I think this is episode 18, so I've not been around for very long. But we're here, and that's all that matters.
That's exactly right.
All right. So usually how I like to kick things off is when I'm meeting someone new for the first time or talking to them, face to face for the first time. I like to start with an icebreaker question. So the icebreaker question for today is, what is your first memory? Matt, let's start with you.
First memory?
Yeah.
Okay, so my first memory, and there's actually pictures of this, was somebody at my house when I was a little kid was having a birthday party, and I guess I wanted to try and eat one of the pieces of plastic fruit that was in the fruit bowl at my house.
He still does that.
And my mom wouldn't let me do it. And I sat on the floor and had a temper tantrum. And there's a picture of this.
He still does that too.
There's a picture of one of my picture albums. So yeah, that goes way back. I mean, that's as far back as I can remember. But that's me.
So mine is, and it sounds kind of grim in a way, but mine was my grandfather's funeral because he had his ashes spread at sea, and so, or ocean or some body of water. So I remember being on the boat. I was 3, and I remember like running into this room full of people, and I guess I had lost my parents, or I couldn't find them, and I kind of freaked out. And I remember like the water being kind of rough, and that's all I remember. But I know that is definitely my earliest memory. So no temper tantrum, I don't think, and no eating of plastic fruit, but that is definitely my earliest.
Very nice. I think for mine, I've got a couple, and actually the one I was gonna share, it's a little bit later than the other one I remember, but I remember I was sitting in the kitchen and I was eating green beans out of a bowl, but I was breaking them open and just eating the seeds out, and then I would just take the outsides and throw them back into the bowl. My mom's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just eating green beans." She's like, "No, you have to eat the outside parts and the inside parts." I'm like, "Well, I only like the inside parts." So not
That's
quite.
My daughter will only eat the tree stalk of the broccoli. She won't eat the top part. She has to eat the tree part, and that's like that. The stalk. That's it. That's all she'll eat. She doesn't want the tree part. Wants the stalk. So
that's like the worst part.
I know, it really is.
Hey, we got to get her to eat vegetables, and like if that's all she's going to eat, then I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah, that's not going to be the hill you die on.
That's right.
Right on. All right. Well, for the concept of Fueled by Weird, basically the idea is, all the things that you're into, all the interests, hobbies, all of that stuff, that's what makes who you are. And essentially that's what fuels your weird. So, Steph, what are some of the things that fuel your weird?
So, as we were talking about before we went live, I'm a runner. I run an insane amount of miles that usually somebody, has some grand reaction to. But I run about
100 miles a month, every month, no matter what's happening.
Wow.
It is the only time. I'm a busy mom, busy business owner, a writer, traveling all the time. So that's pretty much my only alone time. So I know some people, because I'm very regimented about it, and a lot of people give me a hard time about it, which is always kind of odd to me that somebody would give me a hard time about something that's good for you. But it's also my mental space. It's the only time I get by myself ever. So I get up insanely early to do it, and I have goals, and I've done a lot of races. So I guess
Yeah, I
that's
see
not.
you have a lot of trophies behind you there.
Yeah. See, that's all my. I've done 21 half marathons. I've done
Wow.
2 full marathons and countless 5Ks and 10Ks. So that, I guess I wouldn't really necessarily call it a hobby, but it is definitely one of my passions. One of the things that I love to do when I'm not writing, for sure.
No, I definitely think you can count that as a hobby. And, it's people like to give you crap for, having, this is the time I run. If you can't find me, this is because I'm running. If you don't set that time for yourself, you might not ever get a chance to do it. So
Yeah.
it's very important to create those boundaries. Like, you know what? Make fun of me if you want, but this has to get done, because if I don't, then I go crazy.
Oh yeah.
I need this time. I need my running time.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody's trying to find her at 4:30 in the morning, man, I want to know who that is, because that's when
Yeah,
she
exactly.
runs,
I mean,
like before the sun even comes up.
It's an insanely early time, but if my alarm goes off and I'm up, then I'm up. I know that I've got no excuse. I may as well get up and do something productive. So
Yeah, there you go. Awesome. Well, Matt, what about you?
Man, I thought Steph was going to tell you that, like, she's got a closet full of shirts for every single holiday out there. Like, it doesn't matter what the day is. Like, you want to talk about the weird, doesn't matter what the day is. She's going to be like, I'm wearing my Shark Week stuff. I've got my Shark Week outfits for the week. I've got the one day she doesn't have it, I'm like, I'm claiming it as Arbor Day. I'm like, we got to find you an Arbor Day shirt.
I would wear an Arbor Day shirt for sure.
She's got them all.
I'm all about tradition and I can't think of the word right now, but that type of thing. It's early.
Yeah.
I'm all about like creating those memories, and I hope that one day my kids are teenagers now, so it's not like funny to them anymore, but maybe one day they'll look back and be like, yeah, my mom always had, we always watched, Die Hard on Christmas Eve, and we always watched Jaws on the 4th of July, and I just have my things that I love to do. But maybe one day they'll look back and think fondly about that when I'm no longer around. So
and maybe keep that tradition going. Yeah.
I'm a huge horror enthusiast. I write, I'm a film critic, and I do articles for Fangoria and Creepy Kingdom and
Awesome.
Horror and Horror Geek Life. But anybody that sees me on social media knows that I love Jaws. It's my favorite movie of all time, and I love sharks. So I'm just a big horror enthusiast.
Very cool.
So for me, I'm a, they remember the old commercial before Zach, he's a Lego maniac. They used to call me Matt, he's the Lego brat. Been a big fan of Legos. I've literally still have every Lego that I ever had since I was like 3 years old. I still have them all in my possession.
Wow. That's awesome.
I haven't got a lot recently just because, stuff is expensive, but my living room is covered. My living room's covered in Legos. There's probably over 100,000 pieces on display in the living room. All the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit Legos. I'm a huge sports nerd, huge fantasy football player. I'm in 5 pro fantasy football leagues. Now I'm in 3 college football fantasy leagues. I do a college fantasy football podcast for CFB Dynasty. I referee soccer games. I've refereed over 5,500 soccer games over the last 23 years. So yeah, I'm a busy person.
Yeah, I always see on social media you guys are always up to something. It's crazy. Yeah. So busy. And that's admirable about your Legos, because I think there's a bunch of cool ones I used to have that, moving out and moving around. I don't know where they are now. I've started to kind of re-establish a small Lego collection. I recently got a Chainsaw Man Lego guy. Cool. He's not an official Lego. It's kind of like a fake Lego.
Yeah.
But you assemble it all together, and it's the guy from Chainsaw Man. I actually got a big giant pirate ship Lego set for my birthday like 3 years ago that's still in the box because I haven't had the time to put it together, but it's so cool. But yeah, it was pretty spendy. And going off on a weird tangent, Steph, my daughter growing up, when my 7-year-old, when she was much smaller, she was really big into sharks, and she used to get a lot of guff from people because she's like, they would say sharks aren't for girls. You can't be into sharks. Sharks are only for boys. And it was kind of funny because she'd give them the business. I mean, only being like 2-3 years old, she'd be pretty upset. But for a long time, we would take a shark toy and we'd go, nah, Nana, like from Jaws. So for a long time, she actually thought that's what sharks were called. So
Ah,
it was really kind of funny. So she goes around, where's Nana? Like, what are you talking about? Like grandma?
aw.
No, Nana. So yeah, it is pretty funny. She's not so much into sharks as much as she used to be now, but now that she can get into her own thing. But that was just kind of a cute, funny story that she'll like to hear because she likes to go back and watch these later when they're on the internet. So
Nice.
I thought
Well,
it'd be funny.
I had the same thing growing up. I was always into quote unquote not girly things, and you know,
Yeah.
in the 80s that was not ever, no one cares as much
Yeah,
anymore.
it's true.
But back then it was like you don't play with
Yeah.
Barbies and you don't have, you know, unicorns all in your room. I had like posters of Jurassic Park. I think I just I've always been into horror movies, and so my room was filled with like, you know, what would stereotypically be known as boy things, and I got a hard
Yeah.
time for it too. But now I'm a good mixture of both. So
Yeah, 80s and 90s were a hard time for kids because
yeah,
it's like girl stuff or for girls, boy stuff or for boys,
yeah.
that's it. But it's like, no, it's really for everybody. Like, who cares? All right,
Exactly.
so let's shift gears a little bit. So you guys, you've mentioned you do a lot of writing stuff. Matt, you also do quite a bit of writing yourself. What was it that got you guys inspired to become writers in the first place? Steph, let's start with you.
I have wanted to be a writer since I was probably 10 years old. I grew up an only child, so I spent a lot of time watching movies and writing my own stories, even I mean, basically from the time I was able to write. And then when I was in fifth grade, the local newspaper, which, you know, there was, it was it was the 90s. So there was still
Yeah.
newspapers that were read by people. They had a short story contest for Halloween. So it was like scary stories. And I submitted a story and it was for everybody. It wasn't just for kids. And I ended up winning. My picture was in the paper and then my
Nice.
story was in the paper. And from then on, I was like bitten by the bug. That's all I wanted to do all the way through high school. I actually really originally wanted to be a journalist, which is fun that I get to write articles now and kind of live out that part of it.
Yeah.
Then, you know, life got busy. I became a mom. I took care of my kids, and that was pretty much my existence, was just focused on them. And they finally got old enough to a point where I started realizing I can kind of do some of the things that I've always wanted to do now. Now is the time to do that. They're older, a little more self-sufficient. And I realized that a lot of the stories I had been picturing in my head seemed to be in comic form. And so I took like 6 months to learn how to write comic scripts, and uh, started writing scripts for like a graphic novel. And then eventually I found a couple of online, there was like an online competition called Ghost City that was having a competition for like one page comics. And I thought, oh, that's really easy. And that's a lot cheaper than paying an artist to do a full graphic novel.
Yeah.
And I was a finalist in that. And that sort of launched me into the indie comics world. And I started meeting people and finding out about other opportunities.
Very cool. Matt, what about you?
So for me, I always was into writing poetry and lyrics and things like that. Um, I dabbled when I was in high school. I was on the newspaper staff, but didn't really write a whole lot of articles. I was the guy that like did the crazy stuff. Like I remember like reviewing like the Cryptic Slaughter album and stuff like that and getting it in the school newspaper, which was hilarious at the time to see like this extreme grindcore album reviewed in Boca High from the richest city in the country at the time, in their high school newspaper. But I always was a lyric writer. I was a musician since I was right at the tail end of being in high school. And I played for quite a while until the end of the 20 between 27 20 and 2010, and just got burnt out. I was in a band that toiled in the underground for quite a while, released a bunch of CDs, did one tour in Europe, had a couple of pretty famous people in the band with me at the time, that went on to do famous things that are actually still doing world tours literally like today. But I just got burnt out on the whole thing because the market just wasn't designed to sustain itself, and I just got burnt out on it. So I just stepped away, and probably about 7 years later, 10 years later, I still always had that itch. I wanted to write more music. And but I wanted there to be something more, and I wanted there to be music with a story that all kind of fit together. And so I started writing a couple of songs. I still had the vibe, and I wanted to do just a quick little short story, and a couple songs in a short story turned into a full album and an ebook, into an illustrated novel. And I thought that I knew what I was doing. I thought that I was like, oh, cool, I got this comic and all that. And I had some people that were telling me, you need to learn how to write comics. And I met Steph, and she was like, yeah, let's, you're doing something really cool here, but you need to try and let's actually make it into a comic. If you're going to say this is a comic, let's actually make this work. And so when she and I met, that really helped to take the knowledge and the project management and the stuff like that I had, and the understanding of what the medium was. And when you put the two of us together, it really helped us to be able to formulate the things that we've been doing for the last 5.5 years.
Nice. So that kind of brings me into my next question. What was it that led to you guys meeting and creating Insymmetry Creations?
You want to start this one, Steph? You want me to?
It's
an interesting origin story.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, so back in the day, in January of 2018, we both had a mutual friend in the industry that we don't need to name who the person was, sure. But they were running a comic company, and were just getting, at the time, some unfair and unfortunate, just people were just piling on and ripping this guy unfairly. And I jumped into this thread very early on to show the guy some support. Felt like the piling on was unjustified, and this thread basically became viral. And it just comment after comment after comment after comment, hundreds of comments, weeks this thread went on. And three and a half weeks after this thing started, Steph put a comment in this thread, and I got the notification that somebody had commented. I went and looked at it, and her comment was very similar to the comment I had put on there 3.5 weeks ago. And I clicked on her profile, and she had some cool art on there. And I just messaged her. I was like, hey, the art that you have in there looks really cool. It was
which wasn't my art, by the way.
Right, it wasn't
the
art
for my story.
Right, it wasn't her art, but it was the story that she did for that Ghost City Comics competition. Yeah. And that, her putting the comment on that thread, also in support of this mutual friend 3.5 weeks later, and her having that one-page story on her profile, I made a comment about that. She made a comment about some of the stuff I was doing. Is at the time I had the first Heirs of Isildur album done, and it was out, and I had just finished issue 2 of the quote-unquote comic, and she was able to look at those first 2 issues, see how it was integrated with the music and the issues, and she really liked it. And we just started talking from there. And it was very quickly that we realized that the knowledge that we thought we had in the industry, that while we both had a lot of knowledge that we needed, there was like this giant chasm of some of the things that we didn't know. And luckily the other person had the knowledge that we needed. And so very quickly and early on, we knew that there was probably going to be a partnership that was going to be there. And I think we made the agreement to start doing Insim probably 5 months later, and then actually legitimately incorporated it as a business right about the year mark of knowing each other.
It's awesome. And it's always a sign of a good partnership when, you meet, one person or a group of people that, you each have your own individual thing that you're, fairly decent at, and you got your parts that you're missing, and these other people that you've met have that part you're missing. So that's very cool that worked out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and one of the neat things about it too is that it's tough, especially running a Kickstarter. We're running a Kickstarter right now, and a Kickstarter is a very lonely prospect. It's a very lonely thing when you don't have people backing, and it doesn't have you could have 1,000, unless you're Brian Polito. Every person that has a Kickstarter campaign goes through that. Why is nobody backing us? And having somebody else around to keep you sane and keep you in line definitely helps, because one of the best things we do for each other is make sure that we give each other a little bit of room to just barely go off the road a little bit, but we're not going to let that car steer off the cliff, because everybody's going to have their times of emotional outburst or frustration, let them have it, and then get them back on the street, and then kind of move forward. And that's been one of the biggest things that we both provide each other, is that we make sure that the other one doesn't get too caught up in the emotion, positive or negative, keep them kind of grounded so we can focus on moving forward as a business.
Yeah, props to the people that run Kickstarters all by themselves on their own, and not just that, but to fulfill them on their own as well. Because I can't even imagine doing this alone or by myself. And Matt's in Florida, I'm in California, and I try to be there for every fulfillment possible. But there's times when I just can't, for various reasons and obvious reasons. But I'm still there on the other end of the video chat, helping him sort things out and categorizing things and making sure. So there's still things that I'm able to help with. So even though he may be doing all the physical part, there's still things that we're helping each other out with, and I cannot imagine either one of us having to do that by ourselves. So props to you guys that do that on your own, because it is a lot of work.
I mean, even, since you can't be there physically, even just having you there talking to Matt, I'm sure, Matt, I don't want to speak for you, Matt, but I'm sure that probably helps a ton to make you just not go completely insane.
Oh yeah, well, one of the things that we do too is that, as Steph alluded to, we're on video chat every day, just like if we sat in an office in cubicles, we just are on, on video chat. And we do everything that we do on Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Drive. Everything we do is web-based wherever we can. So when it comes to, say, Kickstarter fulfillment, we're on the video chat. Steph's got the Kickstarter campaign up, or she's got the spreadsheet up, or she's got a pirate ship, and she's going through navigating some of those things, or doing this package here, we got to make sure we have this, and this in there. And so there's definitely steps that can be done that don't need to have both physical bodies in there. And honestly, I think the last 2 campaigns, we probably got that process down to like really, really fine-tuned, and it actually really worked out well.
Yeah, I actually enjoy it. It's a lot of work, but I oddly enjoy Kickstarter fulfillment. It's fun at that point when the campaign is over to kind of look back, because there are days where you're getting backers and you're always grateful and you're always excited. But the fulfillment aspect of it, when you're putting somebody's package together with whatever it is that they backed and purchased, and you're filling out their name, and we like to write notes. We like to send notes, even if it's just a quick little note that just says thanks. We try to do a little bit more than that, but you're kind of spending time focusing on that one backer for that moment. And that's kind of when the gratitude comes through, because you think, oh, this is a brand new person. Or we get, one of my favorite things is we remember our backers. So even though it might not be somebody that we knew, because you always have friends and family or people in the industry that will back you, but what we love is seeing a name that we're like, I've never heard that name before, I don't know where they came from, and then they return the next time and they back you again, and that tells you, okay, they liked our stuff enough to want to support us again, and we remember those names. And so that's really fun, that there's these backers that back us and support us that we know by name, even though we may not have ever even met them before.
Yeah, and that is cool. I mean, the Kickstarter people that'll put that little extra effort in, like, I understand it's a lot of work. I've never done one. I can just imagine how much work you have to go through, but the ones that do include those little notes like that, I think, a matter of fact, I think from your guys' last 2 campaigns, I still have the notes from you guys.
Oh, yay.
Awesome.
No,
awesome.
It's just cool that when you put that little extra in there, that's awesome, because it definitely shows that you care, and which is really cool.
Well, the way we look at it too, man, is like, I subscribe to, and we subscribe to, the audience of one concept. And what that is, and this comes from the music world, where it doesn't matter if you've got an audience of 1 person or 1,000 people that are out there to see your concert, that 1 person deserves the same level of performance as the 1,000, because that 1,000 is made up of 1,000 individual people.
Yeah.
So everybody needs to be treated with the same importance. And so it doesn't matter to us if it's a dollar backer, or it's a physical backer, like a digital backer, or a entry level backer, or somebody that's buying at the hundreds of dollars worth of stuff from our campaigns. that person is taking their time out to invest something of their time and their dollars into what we do. And every single one of those people is valuable because you need every one of them to make that village, so to speak, to make your project successful. So that's why we do try to make sure that there's, a note if we can in a physical package. We try to make sure that there's something extra in a digital package other than just, the digital PDF. We try to make sure that the PDFs have got something extra in there so that way people see, hey, this isn't just somebody out there making a money grab. They are really putting a product out that they not only believe in, but they want to make sure that you feel like you're getting your money's worth out of the money and then the time you're investing in that product.
Definitely. Now, I do want to talk about the Kickstarter. I just had one other thing before we switch to that. I wanted to kind of get a gauge from you guys. So when you're coming up with ideas for all your stories, whether it's stuff you guys do together or stuff you guys do on your own, where do you get your ideas from?
I think that the answer is yes. Ideas come from everywhere. Ideas come from every single place that you possibly can. One of the very first things that Steph and I did when we decided that we wanted to work together was we created a spreadsheet, a Google sheet, and every idea that we possibly could come up with, we would just log it up there. Hey, I had this idea, and then we just kind of brainstorm and talk it through and just throw the concept up there. And quickly, we had like 26 different ideas that got thrown onto that spreadsheet.
Oh, wow.
And some of them haven't been touched since then. Some of them we revolve back to, like we even just recently talked about some of them because there's a few that if we wanted to pursue a project, we could utilize some of them together, just haven't had a chance to. But there are a lot of ideas that are on that sheet that started in 2018 that turned into pieces that were used in Tales from Nocturnia. There are some pieces that were used as a catalyst for Misfitz Clubhouse. So you never know. It's like you capture it all and then just see where you go from there. But some of those ideas came from me, some came from Steph. Some of them come from, personal experiences that we've had. We always try to write, people that we know into stories. We have people, one of our most popular things is for people to select a draw me in tier. And we always try to make sure that those draw me ins, we give people a little something, to make sure that they're happy with what's there. In Misfitz Clubhouse, the last story in the most recent issue is called Barrel Peril. Mm-hmm. And there were 6 different people that got drawn into this little 4-page story. And we wanted, like, I guess it was like a shirt or something like that to have a plane on it. I don't know what it was, or a soccer ball. We wanted a soccer ball to be bouncing down the street. And our artist was like, okay, so you want that on that barrel, and what about the other ones? And we're like, oh crap, that's a really cool idea. And so we went to every person's barrel and put something that was unique to them on the barrel. They had no idea. Like our videographer, we put his company logo on the barrel, and he had no clue until he opened up the issue. And when he saw that, he lost his mind. He's like, that's my logo. My logo's in the comic. That's so awesome.
That's awesome.
It's evolved too. It's kind of interesting because I know in the beginning when we were writing that or compiling that spreadsheet, there would be times that I would just say something like just random, like a saying or whatever, and that would be like, hold on, wait. And he like literally make me stop, and he would go write it down. And our styles are very different in that way. Whereas Matt's kind of a mad professor where you could say one sentence and 5 minutes later, he's got this whole world created and built, and there's probably 5 characters named, and he's got the ending, and it's like a 20 series thing. Whereas I'm more of like a distracted cat, where my style is kind of like, wouldn't it be cool to write a jungle adventure and there's like ghosts And people are like, okay, and I'm like, I don't know, I'll figure out the rest later, but wouldn't that be cool? So somehow those styles mesh together.
Oh, they definitely do, because as soon as she comes up with the concept, I'm like, okay, cool, the jungle style with ghosts. What if we end it like this? And then we're like,
yeah,
okay, cool.
which
Now
we've never done that, but well, and now too, we have established titles, so those brand new ideas are a little fewer and farther between.
Yeah.
Because and for those that don't know, Heirs of Isildur is our steampunk time travel series, and that's Matt's series that he created and was working on when I met him. That we now are co-writing the current story arcs for, and Tales from Nocturnia was our medieval fantasy series that was a spin-off of Heirs, and I Am Qido, which is the title that we're going to talk about right now that we're doing a Kickstarter on, is also a spinoff from that. So most of what we are doing now are established titles based off of an original title. So, but there are definitely ideas for new original standalone creations down the line, for sure.
That's awesome. I mean, and actually, when I come up with ideas, I'm a lot like you, Steph. I'm like, what about this idea? Well, what else? I don't know yet.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And I know I was attracted to Heirs originally because I'm a big steampunk fan. So I thought that was really cool. And then Matt, you can't be a mad scientist. I mean, wearing that awesome top hat.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to be a mad scientist.
Absolutely.
That top hat
absolutely.
is so dope.
He is now known as Top Hat Guy. There's times when people are like, see him in regular clothing, and they're like, I didn't recognize you without your top hat on. Like he goes out and shopping in it or something.
Yeah. So yeah, what she said about Top Hat Guy. So I do a lot of panel hosting, emceeing at conventions, and I did a panel with the Terrifier 2 cast. And
my wife is super jealous of that, by the way.
so did a panel with the Terrifier 2 cast, and I was walking backstage to wrangle them up to get onto the stage, and two of them were back there practicing the Clown Cafe song, and I had no idea that this was going to be a part of the panel. And they're like, oh yeah, we're going to debut the live version of the song on the panel right now. And I'm like, okay. And so on the fly, I had to figure out how to make that work. Well, I didn't realize that they were filming all of this for some like backstage for some little Instagram, shorts and things like that. So partway through, they have got shots of me kind of helping to put this together, and they're flashing underneath that Top Hat Guy. My name is not in the video at all. But to the Terrifier guys and to their agent, I'm just Top Hat Guy. So we just saw David Howard Thornton at GeekCon. We actually got a ride in the bus from the airport over. Like, hey,
rode in the airport
guy, what's up? What's going on?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I showed my wife that picture, and she's like, "Your friend met Art the Clown," and I'm like, "Yeah, man, isn't that awesome?"
Yeah.
She was so, and you guys got to ride the bus with Randall Graves.
Yes, with Randall too. I know
That's so rad.
It's so fun that has become such a part of what we do now. That Matt has had the opportunity to be a convention MC / panel moderator host because he's really good at it, and he has a really good rapport with celebrities. They like it because he makes it fun, makes it interesting, gets the crowd hyped up, which of course the celebrity is going to like when they get up on stage and know that people are actually excited that they're there. So because of that, we've had a lot of these opportunities where we've gotten to meet some pretty cool people. And it was fun that David Howard Thornton actually remembered, I don't want to say us because he doesn't remember me, but he remembered Matt. And
Top Hat Guy.
Top Hat Guy. Yeah, exactly. Hey, you know what? We'll take it. So it's kind of cool that we have evolved this thing where we're riding airport limo shuttles with Randall and Art the Clown. And
well, let me tell you, Art the Clown in real life.
Oh, like it's so
we
funny.
we literally had to convince. We were there with the Scout Comics guys, and we were sitting at the hotel restaurant, and I was like, dude, I'm like 2 tables over. That's Art the Clown from Terrifier. And he's like, where? I'm like, that dude right there. He's like, no. I'm like, dude, seriously, that's Art the Clown, because he just is such a unassuming, calm, just normal, nice guy. Like, you don't think that
You would
that
never
guy
know.
right there is that sadistic, insane
Yes.
butcher lunatic in the
Yeah.
like he knows how to turn that thing on and just go to a completely different place.
That's so cool. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask, because my wife will kill me if I don't ask how Art the Clown is in real life.
Yeah, he's I mean, it's exactly like Matt said. You would never know, and this is probably good for him. If you passed him in the grocery store, unless you had seen a previous interview, you would never know that that was the guy who played Art the Clown, because the makeup is so amazing. And he's just so different looking and so, like Matt said, unassuming. He's nice. He just seems like he just has a genuinely good time going out to the conventions and meeting fans. But you would never know. He's not. There's been a couple of people that we in the horror world that Matt has interviewed, not to say that they aren't nice too, but you can kind of see their little, they just kind of have that aura about them where you're like, okay, I can see how they could tap into that weirdness or that, terrifying character, because they're just kind of a little off-putting. That's not the way with him. He just is the most normal guy that you would ever meet.
That's awesome. And I also have to ask, because my wife's other favorite horror character, I believe you've met before, Matt, Richard Brake.
Yes.
How is he in real life? She loves Doomhead so much.
Richard Brake is absolutely freaking wacky on stage. Super, super nice guy. Super nice guy. But he's one of those guys. I would say he's one of the two people that, when I interviewed him on the stage, if the convention was getting fined per curse word that was coming off the stage,
so
Richard Brake.
I mean, every other word was like
Richard Brake but he was a fun guy. He was a wacky guy. And one of the things, because one of the shows I do most of the panel hosting and emceeing is called Spookala. And the venues that they use are like a big open air venue, and they set it up like a concert stage on one end. And there's big screen monitors on the different ends and all that. So everybody gets to be a part. But I always tell people, I'm like, look, if you want to ask a question, there's an open mic. I want you to come up there now. As soon as we can get to that question, we're going to get to it, because I don't want to have us sit up here and talk about stuff for 45 minutes and then get to those last couple of minutes and we don't get a chance to answer the thing you want to answer. And man, those people, when Richard Brake was up there, they were like, I mean, we probably had people asking questions from like a couple minutes in.
Wow.
Yeah, there are a lot of Doomhead fans there too. Yeah. So she's in good company.
A lot of Doomhead fans.
That's awesome. And I got to do one more tangent really quick, because this was a big one for me when I saw that you met Kevin Smith, Steph.
Yes.
I want you to tell me a little bit about that real quick.
Okay. So, well, and this is, it's incredible how it worked out, because Matt has the honor of interviewing all these celebrities, but I have nothing to do with that aspect. Usually I'm hanging out at the booth. I do help him with the research. And a lot of times, since it's horror conventions and I'm such a big horror fan, I may know a little bit more about the celebrity than he may. Not always, but sometimes. And so I do help him with the research aspect of it. But one of the perks is, if it's somebody I really want to meet, all I really have to do is tell them I really want to meet this person. And then I get to jump up on stage at the end of the interview and meet them briefly and get a selfie with them, which is really fun. It's a nice little perk that I have. So, and I mean, I would say almost every celebrity we've met has been amazing. They're just kind. And I mean, they're not going to be there if they don't enjoy meeting people. So Kevin Smith is going to be at Spookala Tampa in October. And I told Matt, we found out about that and I freaked out, because Kevin Smith, I'm a huge fan.
Oh, same.
I told him, okay, yeah. So I told him, I said, that's somebody that I want to meet probably almost more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Because I run so much, I listen to a lot of podcasts. It's just kind of, I can zone out and listen to them. I listen to a lot of audiobooks as well. But Kevin Smith's podcasts have been a part of my life for 7-8 years. I mean, long time. So it's literally how I start my day almost every day, is listening to him. I'm more a fan of him than I am his movie. I mean, I do enjoy his movies, but I'm more a fan of him as a person,
Right.
and just his philosophy in life and the things he's been through, and just his sense of humor, you know, and it's been a tough year for me. And so having that in the mornings, that kind of levity and, you know, giving me something to laugh at, it's been a huge thing for me. So normally when we meet celebrities, it's like, okay, that's cool. And I don't want to bug them. I don't want to know they're busy. So it's usually very brief. He's the one person that I told Matt, I'm like, I have to tell him what that means to me, because he's publicly had a very difficult year too, and struggled with some mental health things. And he's been very public about speaking about it in a very good way that's spoken to me. So anyway, so we're at GeekCon in Shreveport, Louisiana, and Kevin Smith was like the headliner there. It was all the Clerks people. So Jay was there, Jay Hughes, Kevin Smith's wife, his daughter, and a bunch of the Clerks people were there. They were the headliners. But Matt was not moderating those particular panels for the show. And so I said, okay, Kevin Smith is there, but I'm not going to get to meet him. Matt's not doing an interview, and the guy is going to be busy signing autographs all day long. So not getting my hopes up. The only way that it would happen, because Matt and I were guests of the show, so we have access to the green room as well. And so I said, the only time it will work is if I'm back there at the same time with him in the green room. And I would still not go up to him, because I'm like, I don't want to bug him. And, you know, it's, you know, that's, he's trying to eat or whatever. But we knew that we had an in because Kevin Smith is going to be at Spookala's. So we said, well, you know, and Matt is very, very outgoing and has no shame. He's like, I'll go up to him and talk to him and just introduce myself as the panel host and MC of Spookala, which of course makes sense. And so all weekend it was kind of one of those things where it's like, you know, if we go back there, is he going to be back there? And I'm like, it's not going to happen. So it was Saturday, and I think it was later in the day. Saturday was like a 10-hour day. It was really long. And we were kind of going back there, you know, to get snacks or drinks or whatever. And we're like, we can't make it weird and just keep going back there every hour, you know? And at one point, Matt said, why don't you go back to the green room and, you know, grab us some drinks or something. And if, you know, he happens to be back there, text me and I'll come back there. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, he's not going to be back there. I go back there and there's nobody in there except for Kevin Smith.
Oh, man.
He was just sitting down and he was talking to Joey
Lord Adams.
Thank you.
Okay.
So they're having a conversation. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe this. And so I text Matt. I'm like, he's back here. so Matt goes back there and I'm like, well, I'm not going to interrupt, you know, Kevin Smith and Joey Lord and Adams conversation here. But, you know, we have every right to be back there as well as guests. And so we kind of hung out and we like eat a donut just to make it look like we were doing something. And it was a jelly-filled donut, which we both hate. I'm like, this is for Kevin Smith. We have to do this. And so finally their conversation wrapped up and she left. And of course, right at that time is when the showrunners were coming to get him for some prior an engagement that he needed to be at.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay. So Matt quickly went up and introduced himself and they talked a little bit about Spookala. So I got to shake his hand, Kevin Smith's hand, and say hi. But then he needed to be somewhere. And so there was that little part of me that's like, I just need to let him go and I'm not going to be able to tell him. But then as he stood up, I'm like, so I just was like, if you just have a minute, I just want to tell you. It was
Steph walked up to him and shook his hand. And I'm like, okay, she didn't even introduce herself. So when we got a breath, I like introduced her by name again to give her a second opportunity. And that's when she was like, I just got to tell you this. And he was like, oh, thanks a lot. Let's get a picture together. And gave her a hug. And I'm like, it's pretty cool. Kevin Smith
just asked Steph.
Awesome.
Kevin Smith just asked Steph for a picture. Like, that was pretty cool. That was a nice little moment, because that definitely was not what either one of us expected.
No,
and I was glad that was able to happen, because Saturday was a really long day, and just getting that little bit, you never know, that could have been something that affected him in a positive way. We know when people come up to our booth and you know, we had a couple of teenage guys that came up to our booth at GeeksCon, and they came up, they looked at some stuff, they came back a little bit later and they were like, we want to buy some stuff from you guys. You guys are one of only 3 different booths in this whole place. And one of the other ones was Andrea from Scout, who was right there with us, that actually stopped and talked with us and actually showed that you cared that we were here. And they came back multiple times and actually kept on getting stuff from us, and really, like, they went home, read some stuff, came back the next day. Like we joked about, we're going to give you a quiz the next day. And one of them came back the next day and was just like, there's this character and that character and this and that, and just completely just engrossed himself in our stuff. So we're like, we know that we had that kind of impact on those guys, and those guys had impact on us. Who knows what kind of impact that had, or if it did, on Kevin Smith to have somebody interact with
He seemed
him.
genuinely touched. He was very, very nice. I wasn't going to ask for a selfie or anything like that. But as soon as I said, I just wanted to tell you how much I meant to, you mean to me, that's when he's like, well, let's take a picture. I'm like, well, all right, and he gave me the hugs, and Matt got a picture of him hugging me at one point. I'm like, this is amazing. Just talk about serendipity. If I had not gone back there, that would not have happened. So I hope that I had a little bit of impact in telling him exactly what he meant to me and why. So
That's
you never
awesome.
know.
Yeah, I'd be the same. I'd be scared to death to talk to him.
Oh.
And I'm like you. I'm a huge fan of him as a person, as him as a creator. And I've had a pretty hard year this year as well. And there's been times where I've been very upset, and it's stuff that he's done that's helped, like you said, bring a smile to my face. So he's definitely on top of my bucket list to meet for sure. So that's really got to meet him.
That's one that I was nervous for, and usually I at this point now I don't get as nervous. Meeting people is just kind of one of those things like, wow, that's really cool. But I got like emotional afterwards after we left. Thankfully I didn't confront him, but I did, because I'm just thankful to Matt for that, because I don't think that even if I had been back there, I would have felt like I was bugging him. So, but we had a legitimate reason to approach him. So
one thing I've learned about these celebs is that I always tell people, I always try to treat them like we're on the same level, and not because I'm trying to, raise my social status, because we're nobodies in the industry in that respect. But just when I'm on the stage doing an interview with them, we are both equal. We are both doing the same job at that point. And that job at that point right then is, let's make an entertaining panel for the audience members. Let's make a panel that's going to show well for the individual that's on the stage, so that when we get off the stage, those people that are listening are going to want to go back and continue the conversation at their booth. And so at that point, that crossroads, that intersection, that individual and myself are existing on the exact same plane. So we're just humans doing our thing at that point. And so that's when I approach people like that. I've done interviews. Some of the coolest interviews I've done were with 11-year-old Jackson Robert Scott from Lock and Key, and Amy Donald, who was 12, who did Megan in the Megan movies. Awesome. So I've got to do interviews with them. And with Jackson Robert Scott, we actually became friends with his family. His sister was there at the show, and we made sure to give his sister something. And we were like, hey, you know what? We want to make sure that you're recognized too, because we know your brother's the star and you're here with your parents, and we don't want you to be the person that kind of gets left out because your brother's the one everybody's back getting the autographs from. So here's something for you too. And the parents really appreciated us taking time out to recognize the person that was just there kind of as the tag along, as the sibling. That's cool. And so that's how we always approach interviewing celebrities, and I think that they appreciate that too, because I don't get on the stage and go, oh, grand celebrity that has been in a movie, you are so amazing. No, I respect what they've done, but we're up there to do a job, and I treat them like any human being would want to be treated in that situation.
That's awesome, and that's a good way to look at it. Kind of makes them a little less scary.
And real quick before we get off of the subject, don't let Steph undersell her importance in the research aspect of what we do. One of the things that we do is whenever we get the list of celebs from a show, we will do a Google sheet. And if you ever see the pictures of these panels, and I've got my tablet up there, that's because there's a Google sheet that we've done a lot of research, a lot of questions, make sure all that stuff is there. But that starts off with me putting the names on there, and then Steph goes through some exhaustive research on each person, making sure that she kind of sifts through that initial, tons of information gets it on there, and then I can then go in there and say, okay, how do I want to build on this? What are the movies I either need to watch or rewatch or refresh myself on? But she sifts through a lot of that insane crap at the beginning that I just don't have the time to do as well as she does. So don't let her undersell her importance in making sure that those panels go off without a hitch, because without that early prep, those panels don't come off the way that they do.
I enjoy it too. It's fun too, especially when it's the horror people, because may know a little bit about it, or they may have starred in a movie that I enjoy. But when you do that deep dive, you learn all these interesting little things. I try to find some little tidbit about them that is different than their acting career. You know, might be that they're involved in this charity, or that they are, you know, a black belt or something. You never know the random things you're going to learn about somebody when you do that extensive research. So I try to find those things for him to bring up on stage. And a lot of times they've told him, oh, you've done your research like that. I don't get asked that very much. I'm like, yes, I did my job. But yeah, I'm you know, it's the journalist, it's the writer, it's in my DNA literally to be a researcher. Got a lot of
Yeah,
PhDs in the family. So
you kind of add that little personal touch to make it a little bit more personable.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's definitely something they'll probably remember for sure then too.
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so enough tangents. I apologize for all the tangents, you guys. We're here to talk about I Am Qido, so let's get to it.
All right, so I Am Qido is our fictional Far East fantasy horror graphic novel. It's a one-shot that does spin off from Heirs of Isildur, but it is designed in a way that we don't want anybody to be intimidated and think, oh my gosh, I have to go read the rest of this other universe to understand what's going on here. Not in any way. This is Qido's story before he was called through a portal. So everything in this graphic novel is taking place prior to him being called through that portal and attaching to where he's at in Heirs of Isildur, the Perilous Prospects. It's we say it's like Mortal Kombat and Soul Calibur meets Mad Max. It is not something where we're talking about there's going to be some tournament or anything of that nature. It is the vibe, the aura. If you think about the kind of characters that you see in those games, there are some characters that have got a positive bend to them. There are some characters that have a negative bend to them, and that's where the feel is. It's set in the fictional Far East, and that's where that comes in. And then the Mad Max aspect of it, you've got the Dark Conquestors and the Soul Rippers that we really get into in there, and that's where the Mad Max piece comes in. That's why it's the fictional Far East, because it's not something where we're not trying to be historically accurate. We are being respectful and not making it when it's something that needs to be accurate, we make sure it's accurate, but it's designed to be fantasy. I mean, you know, Heirs of Isildur, you see what the Heirs of Isildur story is. You've seen Qido come through the portal, and one of the very first panels he's in, they ask him where he came from, and he's like, they said, do you know your name? He's like, of course, my name is Qido, and I'm sworn to the throne of Akanakatu. And then he questions Merc and Shiver about, you know, how do I know I should trust you guys? You know, how do I know you're not a conjurer that has brought me into this place? And those couple of panels really allowed us to expand this entire story that's out there for I Am Qido. You know, I can ramble on and on about what the story is and what's out there, and I want to leave Steph some ability to be able to talk about her things that she really loves about the story. But one of the things we did do with this project was, especially with the economy the way it is, with the amount of competition that's out there for entertainment, instead of making this another multi-piece arc, we said this is going to be a one-shot. Currently, it's at 80 pages, so that way, you know, if you go invest your dollars in this perfect bound book, that you're going to be able to get an entire story arc in this. You're not going to have to wait a year to get the next piece. You're not going to have to pay shipping multiple times to get the whole story. You're going to get Qido's entire arc in this book, and his entire. And that doesn't mean there's not doors that are left open for whatever may be, but we know that you are going to be able to get this book. If you get this book, Chris, you're going to read it. You're going to go, okay, I feel like I've satisfactorily got this backstory of Qido in an entire volume, and I know I don't need to get another volume to understand Qido and the Yamaran Empire in any other way.
That's awesome. So what was it that made you guys decide, instead of doing, you know, another book in the Heirs series, to go back and essentially do what a prequel series?
to do this instead of going to Perilous Prospects 3.
Yeah.
Is that what the... Well, funnily enough, or humorously enough, or whatever the right word may be, this was only supposed to be a short little addition to the Perilous Prospects trade paperback when we get to that point. And if you look at the history of Heirs, there are a lot of times where we'll go back and see a little flashback to a character within the Heirs story. And there's even whole issues that were devoted to Syndrome's backstory or Professor Hemlock's backstory. And that was all this was intended to be. But as soon as we started writing it, we realized, and we kind of had to fight it. And normally in this situation, Steph is the one that fights it more than I do. I'm always like, hey, we can add a couple pages. And she's like, this doesn't need to continue to get bigger. But we both knew that this story needed to be bigger than we were originally intending. If we made Qido's backstory 10 pages, we'd be missing out on some really, really, really fun, really cool aspects. We would have missed out on the entire horror side of the fantasy horror that's in this story. And so we kind of let the script, we kind of let the character development, and a lot of times even the artist, because there's times we're like, hey, this is a one page situation with 8 panels, and the artist is like, I can't tell this the way you want me to tell it in 1 page. Let me do it like this. And then we would go back and look at that compared to where we had the script moving forward. And we're like, well, if this section here is now 4 pages, it's going to be silly for this section later on to be 1 page. So that's how the project continued to grow into where it is right now.
And that's what I think is good about storytelling is, you'll write what you want the story to be. And then, when you start getting into the art part, that could totally take you in a completely different direction. Even from where you have it in your brain to when you write it down, it could take you in a different direction that you didn't normally plan on, but it ends up working out for the better. So that's really cool that went that way.
I really like when artists suggest something, because we're the writers, they're the artists. They know their job, how to do their job better than we do. All we can do is say, this is how we picture it in our heads. Now make it. And a lot of times it works out. And especially now that we've been doing this a while, we kind of know what's going to fit on a comic page and in panels better than we may have in the beginning.
Yeah.
But Alessandra Ventura, who is our artist for these series that we're doing, he has a really good way of suggesting something to us without coming across unagreeable or overbearing. A lot of times he's very polite about it and will say, hey, I'm looking at this page, I'm doing this page right now, and I don't know if this is going to work the way you guys envision it. May I suggest doing it this way? And sometimes we go back and forth on it a little bit and come to a compromise. And there's other times when he says that and we're like, yeah, yeah, he's right. So it's always nice when the expert offers their expert opinion and everybody agrees and everything's great. So it's nice when that happens.
Yeah, there's times too with Alessandro that it's interesting because he'll be like, why do I have to put this specific aspect on the page? And we're like, we need that there because we are going to call that back later on. And we love to do that in our stories. If you were a fan of Tales from Nocturnia and you read the first issue of Tales from Nocturnia, there was a character that was hidden, that was revealed at the end of the issue, that once you got to the end of the issue, you're like, hold on for a second. And you went back, you're like, dude, I saw that character 8 other times in the issue. I didn't even realize that I needed to pay attention to that person. And we did that on purpose. And there are times we have to do this. He's like, why do you have me drawing this? We're like, trust us. This has to be here because we need that. If you don't put that in there and we don't have the ability to call it back, you're throwing off the entire arc. So he's like, okay, I'm going to trust you guys so I can see where this is going later on.
Yes.
Very cool. So with this Kickstarter, are you able to just get the Qido story? Can you go back and get other books in the series? And I know you guys usually like to add on a bunch of fun extras. So what can people, when they go to the Kickstarter, what can they expect to see?
So the first thing you can see when you get to the Kickstarter is the lyric video for the theme song, Spiral into Madness. We have that lyric video up there that also helps to expand out Qido's backstory and Qido's motivation for what's going to be happening in the story, why there's even a story in the first place to tell. We got a lot of different covers that have been revealed. depending upon when this podcast drops. We've got 5 of the covers that are revealed right now. We have a 6th cover that it's already in the campaign, but it's listed as a secret cover, and we'll reveal it partway through the campaign. The reason we did that was mainly because this is a character that we did not want to be talking about at the beginning of the campaign. She's a character that is probably going to start taking over the airwaves in a sense when she is revealed, and we wanted to make sure that the main characters and the big thrust of the story was going to have the focus now. If this was something where, like, for instance, when we did Heirs of Isildur, the issue that Qido was revealed in, we made sure to have his name, his image were mentioned none in the marketing, none in the campaign, because we wanted it to be a complete surprise. With this being a one-shot, we felt like we'd be doing the story and the marketing a disservice to not show her beforehand. So that's why we're waiting. And so probably within the next week or so, we're going to debut that cover, and we are psyched to be able to get that character out there into the airwaves. And more to your question, I'm going to let Steph talk about some of the other cool things that's in this campaign. But one of the, if somebody wants to get more, we always make sure that they have the ability to get more. If there's a tier called Qido's personal story or Qido's full story so far. So if you want to get I Am Qido, but then also get Perilous Prospects 1 and Perilous Prospects 2 and see his continuation, you can get that. If you want to get the entire Heirs universe, the extended universe, you can get all of the Heirs books from Crossroads Conundrum, Nightmare Scenario, Perilous Prospects, Tales from Nocturnia, and I Am Qido. And we will throw in an issue of Misfitz Clubhouse, because that has nothing to do with this arc, and it's completely for a different demographic, but we don't want to act like Misfits doesn't exist in this campaign. So we have it where you can get Misfits for free if you get one of those larger tiers. But yeah, we always make sure that if people want something that it's out there in the add-ons or in some of those larger tiers. But Steph, I know that you would want to talk about the other cool things that we add on, the swag that we put into these campaigns that always is the thing that makes our campaigns pop.
Well, a couple of the things that we're getting known for now are socks and leatherwork. But we have a lot of wearables this campaign. So yeah, Matt's showing you the socks right there. We started doing socks. I can't remember what
it was with Misfitz Clubhouse.
Okay, it was Misfits. Okay.
Yeah.
So for Misfits, we decided to do socks. We thought it would be kind of a fun, silly thing because with an all ages title, it's a lot more difficult to think of extras that people are going to really like and respond to, because it might not work as well with kids. And we thought, well, socks is fun. And we found this amazing vendor who you never know sometimes what you're going to get. And I think there was a little bit of nervousness with those first socks. We're like, are these going to be like really cheap feeling? Are they going to be scratchy? They're amazing. I mean, I love socks. I have a bunch of crazy socks.
Yeah, me too.
I'm always cold, so I'm always wearing socks. And these things, we've been doing them for over a year now. They've gotten washed a million times. They hold up, and they're super comfortable. And it's a testament when somebody, we love it. We love when whether it's at a show or after a Kickstarter or just ordering from our website, that somebody posts online and says, here I'm wearing or have this item that I bought from Insym. And we had one time where somebody posted they were wearing the socks, and there was mutual friends, and they're like, yeah, I'm wearing the socks today too, or I love the socks. And it became like this big thread.
Yeah, here's me wearing it at a wedding.
Yeah. So it just became a thing. It was never anything that we set out to become sock people, but we inadvertently are, because we love them so much and everybody loves them. And they're nice little add-ons, and they sell really well at conventions as well. So we are definitely doing socks again this time. We've got the dual serpent logo, which I really like. I think it looks really cool, and the prototypes for the socks look amazing. And we're doing shirts again as well, going with the theme of wearables. But we have always been known for our leatherwork that we do with our buddies at GB Leatherworks, Harrison Hansen and Martin Irish. They we met them at a steampunk show years and years ago, and they became good friends of ours. And now it's like we do a ton of conventions with them, and we're always like, you know, even one of the shows that we do that we met them at, they know to just put us next to each other, and it's just we hang out all day and have
That's
a lot
awesome.
of fun. They're amazing, talented leather workers, and if you guys have never seen leather workers at work, they're like blacksmiths. It's like taking a step back in time to the medieval times. They're there hammering things, you know, they've got like their brands and stuff. It's just amazing what they can do. And these guys have had, and they are hilarious and have some of the funniest stories of things that they have made for people. But we will come up with some crazy idea and tell them, and they will find a way to make it work. So we've done for Tales from Nocturnia, they did for us these insane dragon masks that had amazing colors to them, and people could literally put them on their heads and wear them. And so, you know, with each campaign, it gets a little bit more difficult to go, okay, what leather work are we going to do now? Because the people that buy the leather work are very loyal about it, and they want that. And so this time we have a very crazy looking mask that I'm like, I just want this as a piece just to put on like my bookshelf or something. I wouldn't even need to wear it. It just looks that cool.
Yeah.
And then we are doing Blazok's eye patch, which is a fun little leather eye patch that people can wear, you know, if they're going to the Ren Fair or something. And then we're doing Tatsumi's hairband, which is like your typical it's the traditional Japanese hairband with the I can't remember what it's called, but it's like the long stick that goes through it. So
sure.
we're really excited about the pictures that they're working on them for us right now, and we think that people are going to really love them.
And with the Soul River mask, the big giant mask that they made for us, those are things that when it's built based on us doing that dragon mask that Steph talked about. And when they first came to us, said, "Oh, we could do this dragon mask," we're like, "Hey, that's really cool. How much does it cost?" We're like, "Oh, it's $300." We're like, "Who is going to buy a $300 leather dragon mask in our Kickstarter campaign?" Come to find out, a lot of people
do.
They
Yeah.
really dug it. So we
Yeah.
didn't have a problem with adding in a $300 leather Soul Ripper mask that's got all the different horns and stuff like that on there, because you know what, there's people out there that want it. And one of the things that we'll say, and this is all we'll say, by the time this drops, there might be some other stuff out there, but we've got some other stuff that's in the can right now that we're developing with them that could become a part of this that could become a part of this project. That there's
nice.
just a lot of logos. I mean, the Tatsumi's hairband and Blazok's eye patch, which is exclusive to the campaign. Once the campaign's done, we're not going to make those anymore. And the Soul Ripper mask are super awesome, but there are some things that are going to fit right down there in the middle between the price range of those smaller things, that big gigantic mask, that we absolutely can't wait to unveil. We'll just have to see when we can unveil them in the campaign.
Perfect. And I'm like you said, I'm a big sock guy myself. I'm kind of becoming known for my crazy socks.
Yes.
Matter of fact, I have Macho Man Randy Savage socks on today.
Yes.
So I'm definitely gonna have to look at that for sure.
Yeah, I hardly have any serious socks. I mean, I'd like the only time I wear normal looking socks is when I run, and they're like the athletic socks. Otherwise, I'm the person that's buying, you know, I have like 4 pairs of shark socks. You know, it's just whatever it speaks to me. And usually it's something, you know, horror themed or shark themed or Jaws themed, that I've got a bunch of socks.
And we really didn't want to do, when we did the last Misfitz Clubhouse campaign, we were like, oh, we don't have to do socks for Sharks, Dragons, and Little Red Wagons. You know, are we going to typecast ourselves? But the character in there, Bruce McTutherson, aquatic investigator, our artist for that, Raheel Mosin, just really caught the vibe for how cool he could draw Bruce McTutherson, and just kept on looking at it and kept on looking at it. And one day I was like, Steph, I know we don't want to do socks, but I think that we have to for this one. And she's like, no, we don't have to do socks. I'm like, let me just show you a template of this cool Bruce McTutherson stuff. And once I showed her the template, she's like, okay, you're right, we got to do it. And so once we kind of,
I never said no, we can't do socks. I was on the fence about it.
Well, no,
I never said no.
No. What I meant by that, we both were like, no, we're not going to do it. But then the art just kind of forced our hand to do it, because it was going to be probably the coolest socks we've done to this point. And now once that lid was blown off, we're like, okay, every campaign we're going to have socks. Doesn't matter what it is, we're doing socks. That's what we are. If we don't put socks in the campaign, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. That's who we are. We got to put them in there. So that's why there's socks.
Perfectly themed with your podcast. We're just embracing the weirdness that is the We're the Sock People.
sometimes you can't fight it. You just gotta
No.
go with it. I mean, especially with Misfitz Clubhouse, that's one I think of all the campaigns to not do socks on.
Yeah,
that's definitely the one to do socks on for sure.
Now it's a given. And honestly, we have people that are, I think if we didn't do it at this point, there'd be a couple people that'd be writing us and saying, why didn't you do socks? I want more socks. So,
and I definitely think on the next Misfitz Clubhouse, when you do socks, because you'll be doing socks again, definitely include the pirate character.
Yes.
Oh man,
it's such a trip how characters will jump out and kind of like become bigger than the brand. Bruce did that. Captain Bluebeard did that. There's a couple of characters in Heirs that the way that Alessandro drew them, like he was drawing background characters. Hey, we need some of the people that are in Shadow's Haven that are going crazy that are going to be at this thing. And he drew a couple of characters and we're like, dude, this person right here, we would like screenshot it. We're like, this person right here, this is now this character's name. This character is going to become somebody. That character got a trading card. That character is like actually an actual part. Like you've seen him in Perilous Prospects 2. He's definitely going to play a big role in 3. But it's great when an artist draws something that forces you to have to rethink what you were doing. There's some stuff even in I Am Qido where the way that Alessandro drew some things, we had to go back and rethink. We're like, we need to feature this person more, this character more, this style of character a little more, because he was really catching the vibe on it. And you just kind of have to roll with it sometimes. You can't always do that, but we're like, dude, this character looks really cool, or this setting is really cool, and it's going to be stupid for us to not just roll with this thing. And so sometimes that art just kind of helps to force that narrative.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. All right, well, speaking of upcoming stuff, after this Kickstarter, what's next for you guys? Either separately or together. What do you have coming up that you can talk about?
The two most obvious things that we have coming up are Misfitz Clubhouse. There's going to be a scout release of Sharks, Dragons, and Little Red Wagons, but then there is also going to be a trade paperback version of Misfitz Clubhouse that is going to go through Simon & Schuster and is available in previews right now through you can go to Barnes & Noble, you can go to Amazon, you can look it up. And what that's going to have in it is all these stories from the first 2 issues for Scout, which is 7 stories. We also did a story called Dress Up, Mess Up that was only in the first Kickstarted version. And we have another small short that is going to be for the first time ever in that book version. So that's going to be coming out. That story is coming along. Super fun. We had a ton of fun writing that. And then also we're going to have our story Lost Girl that is going to be coming out in Cthulhu Invades Neverland from Orange Cone Productions. That campaign just finished up on Kickstarter, so we're going to have that story that's going to be out there. And obviously when this is done, we have to get our butts in gear to be working on Perilous Prospects Part 3.
Very cool. All right, well, before we go, let's give some final thoughts to up and coming creatives or wannabe writers, creators that are maybe just too afraid to get out there and get creating. What's some advice you'd give, Steph? Let's start with you.
The advice I always give, and it doesn't change, so I know a lot of people are like, Steph always says the same thing, but it is so true. And it is a mantra that I have for running that actually fits well with writing as well. And that's, you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. There are a lot of aspects of getting into the industry and putting yourself out there to get to know people, because if people don't know you, they're not going to know whether to support you or not. And you have to kind of step out of your comfort zone a little bit to do that. A lot of us don't like to do the social media thing or promote our work, or kind of, it's a uncomfortable thing to do sometimes because you don't want to come off as begging or, any of that stuff, but it is a part of this industry. It's a part of what you do. And that's how you get to know people and gather supporters that are going to want to support you and follow you and purchase the things that you create. So you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because you're going to You're going to have rejections. If you're submitting your stuff to publishers, you're not going to get a yes every single time. There's nobody that gets that. Even people in Hollywood who are pitching scripts to studios get no's all the time. So
Sure.
you have to get comfortable with the fact that you may get a review that might not be incredibly positive, and you have to learn to not read that and get so upset that you just say, oh, I'm never doing this again. Learn from it, grow from it, take what they're saying, and try to, see if there's anything that you can apply to the next thing that you write. So get okay with stepping out of your comfort zone, getting to know people, supporting others, and trying to learn and grow from your mistakes. And it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to be wrong sometimes, because that's how we learn and get better the next time that we do something.
I would say you can either be an excuse maker or you can be a risk taker. And if you have something that you want to do, there is no reason to not try to start taking a step towards that right now. And the way to do that is to, and I know that I wish that Google paid me a stipend, because we all the heck out of Google, but go up right now and create yourself a Google Sheet or a Google Doc and have it up on your computer, have it up on your phone, because it's a shared document. So that, like, for instance, we've got our scripts for, everything we do. I've got it up right now. Steph has it up. Our artists around the world have it up. So that way it's there as an open living document. But have that document up and start notating things that you can do to further what you're trying to do, and see how many of those things you can cross off the list right now. Easy wins. It could be something as minimal as, I need to go follow 5 people on Kickstarter that are running projects that I want to see how those projects are working. I need to go research the way that tiers are structured. I need to go, as Steph said, she spent 6 months learning how to write comic scripts. I need to go find a link for what that is. Take a step today when you are getting ready to, and I don't want to say right before you go to bed, but say a couple hours before you think you're going to go to bed. Say, have I done everything that I can do today to further this thought process? And if you have, then you're good to go. If you haven't, then say, what can I do right now so that I can have a clear conscience in moving forward to that goal? And keep track of every little thing you do, because you could get to the end of a day and you could be like, man, I don't think I got anything accomplished today. And then you go back and you're like, holy crap, I paid this bill, and I sent 5 people emails, and we lettered this page, we flatted this page, we sent an email to this artist, we received this in from an artist, and we cataloged this. And you're like, holy crap, we actually touched 15 different things today, but it just didn't feel like it. So that way you can say, okay, I can see that I'm making progress as I go. Like I said at the beginning of the statement, you can either be an excuse maker or a risk taker. You can find every excuse known to man to not take that risk. And it's easy to find a way to get out of doing something. It's the people that take that risk, that Steph said, are comfortable with being uncomfortable, putting yourself out there, trying new things. Those are the ones that are going to have a lot better chance of having success.
Definitely. That's great advice, guys. Thank you. Now, if we want to keep up with you guys with everything that's going on, where can people find you on the internet?
Right now, the most important place you can go is to the Kickstarter campaign. Obviously, we're trying to get this thing not only funded, the amount that's listed on there is the minimum funding goal. We always set that low so that way we can get to stretch goals, where we can unlock items, unlock tiers, get things back to people. To get there, you want to go to tinyurl.com/I Am Qido. That is IAMQIDO. So you want to go to tinyurl.com/I Am Qido to get to the Kickstarter campaign. It ends on September 21st, and we need you to become a part of the empire there. But if you're like, dudes, I don't want to go to the Kickstarter campaign right now, I want to see all these other cool things. You talked about Steph having over 80 bylines, writing all these articles. Go to linktree.com/Insymmetry Creations, INSYMMETRY Creations. And all of our links are there to all of the albums that we've written, to our website, to our different stories, to Steph's articles. Everything is there at that link tree.
Very cool. All right, now for us, you can find this interview when it drops and all sorts of other geeky goodness at our website at geek-network.com. You can find us on the socials on Twitter and Instagram at GeeksAZ. You can find us on Facebook at Geek Network. I Am Qido is weird on Instagram. The music for the show is by my friends in the band Polygon Horizon. They're a great band. Go check them out on Bandcamp. The logos for the show are done by my friends Chris Chandler and Mike Belcher. Amazing comic book guys. Go check them out on social media. And if you like the show, please leave a review and tell your friends, because word of mouth is our friend. Folks, remember, kids, to always embrace the things that feel you're weird and always geek responsibly. Matt, Steph, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you
man.
so much for
Appreciate it.
having us.